So greetings, comrades. Tonight is not a live show. It's a recorded schwabbery with the best of the picks from the archive. I think there's a bit of human vibration, maybe a bit of Jason Archaics thrown in tonight. So please enjoy. The last live show of the year is going to be next week, November the 22nd. We've got Nathan Lucius to talk about his new book, Fake Awake. And me and Andy PG have just been in the studio tonight. This another great midweek Raw.
We've had a really good session tonight on Peasantron, guys. If you're not subscribed for a mere $3.33 a month, get over there, because we've had such a good chat tonight that we simply can't bring these topics up on YouTube.
We've done the Torah crown with Trump. We've had a watch party with Dan Bilzerian and Piers Morgan. Guys, big shout to everyone that's already subbing to the Peasantron.
Like the Black Cube organisation is running at 333,000 miles an hour at the moment. We've got so much content, guys.
And basically, we can't really openly talk about a lot of this stuff on
No.
YouTube. So that's why Patreon is so great. Apart from all the other discounts, the chat in there, it's a great way to bring the Ramish community together. And it is the #1 way to support Rise Above. So guys, enjoy Rise Above TV tonight. But don't forget to sub to Patreon. The link is in the description to the video. And there will be a QR code on the screen as well.
And we'll catch you next week,
We'll
live
catch
in
you
the
next
studio.
week. Last episode of 2024.
Word.
We have had some new terms, some new
Ramish language.
Ramish vocab has been added in the last 18 months from new happenings, new levels of understanding that we've come to. And every 50 episodes, I think that should become a thing.
Yeah,
I
we'll
think,
do that.
I think it's important that people understand our language because it's, you know, you got to teach people your language, haven't you? When
Yeah, because you know, we do want to attract new visitors, new viewers, and new you know, regulars. And it's important that they do have a full understanding of everything we talk about because we can't say things plainly and clearly because of Al Gore.
You have to know the dance steps, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Otherwise, you're just going to get flattened on the dance floor. Al Gore's just going to bogle all over you.
He's going to do the foxtrot over your ass.
He's going to do the foxtrot over your ass. C is for the content consuming entity. So this is a group of C's, really. It's around clown elements. It's around content. And it's around catalyst as well. And all of these terms that we sort of now use quite often, all sort of, well, I tried to cement them in Raw Agenda 2033 with these images. And this is all to do with, you know, what we've been doing earlier on in the show. It is entertainment, like we've said before, you know, to laugh at Clown World, but it is also a metaphysical process, in our opinion. Whether people take us seriously when we say that or not, I don't really care. But in my opinion, it is a metaphysical process to process this catalyst, this clown sludge, and to make sure that it doesn't ill affect you.
The media goo.
Yeah, the media goo.
It's not bullshit. That's 100% what it's got to do.
Yeah. When Inner Guardians was with us, he used to say something along the lines of, it's almost like group therapy. We come together
it's kind of
on a Friday night and we sort of, you know, because you can't really ignore the stuff that there's, like I've said this before, you can't really ignore the stuff they're throwing at us, whether you watch the mainstream media or not. It goes into the peasant sphere.
Yeah.
And if you interact with Clown World or the peasant sphere, then...
Mate, it's all around you. You can't escape it.
The egregore is containing it.
I don't watch the news. I don't but people talk about it. I hear people talking about it. People tell me about it. I see stuff on social media. Do you know what I mean? It's
almost impossible to walk away from
when you're
it.
walking down the road, and if you go into the city or something like that, and there's a TV store, they've got the fucking news. Like, you literally can't get away from it.
So just to round this one up as we move on to more of C's, this content-consuming entity is a metaphysical metaphor which I conceived a little while ago as part of the process of how we consume the meme sludge or the sludge from Clown World, and we start to process it in a healthy way that doesn't harm us, basically, and we get some you know, some good catalyst out of it, and we also manage to get some entertainment too. I think that's that's the bottom line here. Okay. So C is for content consuming entity. This is an umbrella corp piece of technology that's patented. C is also for Camilla 19. Now, you might not have heard us say Camilla 19 before the show tonight, is that right?
No, I think
it's the first tonight. But we thought at the end of the day, now that Sausage Fingers has actually been anointed and is the king, you know, we're going to hear more about this person, so we better give her a name. Camilla 19 it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think, you know, she came about, it came to prominence.
It's very Ramish.
It's very Ramish. She's definitely linked with the 19.
Divok.
Yeah, but she's linked.
She's linked to the Divok.
Well, how shall I say it? The Divok's rise to power, the aggregated manifestation of the Divok, was sort of like had a positive correlation with her journey from side chick to basically Queen sausage fingers.
I saw a great meme where it had a picture of Camilla 19 and it said, "Don't worry, side chicks. There's always a chance."
Mate, it's on the screen right
Is
now.
this, oh yeah, shit, yeah. So I did read the text.
Put on your glasses. Right, so
It's brilliant.
Camilla 19. Because I'm sure that back in the day it was always said, you know, after they got Diana out of the way, it was always said that, but Camilla...
That was another energy harvesting ritual that was a sacrifice.
They literally had people around the world crying.
Yeah, mate.
Tell you an interesting story. I went on a trip to Paris the week after that happened.
That's where it was, wasn't it? It was in a tunnel.
It was a
in
school
Paris,
trip, and you know, at the time, I think I was like 15, and we walked across the bridge. Now, at the time, as a rebellious 15-year-old, I didn't really understand what all the fuss was about. You know, it's just a royal parasite got died. You know, I was a callous 15-year-old. We walked over the bridge and with our school group, and you know, when you're 15 in front of groups of people, you do things to show off. And there was the actual bit of the tunnel above where she died, and it's got the Point de Alma statue, like the illuminated torch statue. It's coming out of the sidewalk. You can walk right past it and touch it. And everyone had written on it with marker pens these big essays about how they loved Diana. Right. And like someone from my group went up and started writing something, and I was like, someone give me a pen. And I just went out there and just wrote a massive Wu-Tang symbol.
Yeah, nice.
I put Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with.
Good choice.
Yeah, and this French bird slapped me around the face, and her boyfriend came out, and then my mate was like, fuck you, she was our princess, we'll do what we want. and then you know, there's like 10, 15-year-old lads, it almost kicks off at, well, all these people there was sobbing and crying. But like, you know, back then I didn't know anything about energy harvesting. I just wanted to do the most inappropriate thing I could do while everyone was crying.
You were 15.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And you know, writing Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with right next to someone that was sobbing going, Diana, I love you, was pretty special. It's one of those moments you never forget.
It was very appropriate as a 15-year-old.
Please, yeah. I had to break the energy harvesting.
We should have a Wu-Tang noise, really, of some kind.
But instead, we've just got.
This is better. This is as much Wu-Tang as you can get. Right, we're still on C. Yes. Okay. So the catalytic converter.
Hit that shit.
Nice one. You know the button already. This is the final process when we take the mean sludge out the back of the content-consuming entity and we process it into this fine pink. Oh shit! I'm not showing the screen. Sorry. Here was the content. The meme catalyst. Go back. What's going on with my mouse?
We chucked champagne on it earlier.
Yeah, that's probably got something to do with it. There it is. Thank you, Matt. It's processed into this fine sludge, and it helps us to get through the process. Big shout out to Slick Rick. He's done such a sterling job on the editing with these bite size. I've decided that we're going to really, really push this. As everybody knows, the other channel doesn't really have as many subscribers. We've got like almost 10,000 subscribers on this channel. The other channel is where all of this stuff is cut down for your easy consumption. Nice little like bite-sized nuggets of rabbit. Okay, so that's what you need to do. Subscribe to Rise Above, our other channel, and support this bite-sized content as it's coming out. Okay, so let's start off with some memes. Big shout out to Auntie Koviet. So, and then it's good because in Andy PG's absence, we have to honour him with this amazing meme. I believe it's obviously got a Knights of Camelot vibe, right? Let's break this down. Oh, it's Ramelot. Look in the background, Ramelot, Knights of Ramelot.
Nice. Who's that up in the air? Who's that?
That's David Icke.
Is it?
David Icke is some sort of like moon angel there, I guess.
And then there's a chalice above his head. Is that chalice?
The chalice of truth. We've got this big white rabbit in the background, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I guess that's God Vaj's crater.
Oh,
right
okay.
there.
Yeah. Nice.
He's got reject the Soviet Union flag, and I just love it. That's like, I guess I'm Lancelot.
Nice to make you dance a lot.
Knights of the Round Table business. God, that brings back memories. And no one can see it down here. If I just get this out of the way, let me just get that out of the way. Can you see that? And let me just get rid of the clicker as well. Yeah, look, there's like a little a little sort of cadaver skeleton at the bottom there. You see, I upgraded the button. I told you. Wait. Come on. That's right. Big shout out to AC, Auntie Covey. You are killing it with these memes. Absolutely spoiling us. And do you know what? Restream have changed these controls here. I don't really know what I'm doing. Okay, so on the right, this is also the work of Auntie Covey, and it sort of sets the theme for the subject of the week, or what all the normies have been talking about. You've obviously got Hugh Edwards on there. He's been added to the lineup. So Rolf Harris, that's obviously Philip Schofield. Gary Lineker is Scary Spice. Is he implicated as well? I don't know. Who's Baby Spice with the beard in the top right? Who's that? Auntie Koviet. Can you tell us who that is, please? I'm sure you're watching.
That's not that nonce who's part of that group. What group?
Oh, what? The one that were involved in a baby?
Yeah.
Maybe it was. I don't know.
Was because wasn't he married to a TV presenter, radio presenter? Can't remember her name.
I guess. Oh,
it looks like him.
Right.
What was her name?
So yeah, everyone's calling Auntie Koviet. Where are you? Please, can you tell us who this is in the meme, the top right? In what is this? The Not Nice Girls? Because that's a pretty like devilish lineup to be included in with Rolf Harris, Philip Schofield, and now Hugh Edwards too. Yeah, pretty spectacular. Now, on the right we have more. Oh no, this is from Kieran. This is from Russ Kieran. So it's another lineup, the usual suspect. 5 BBC nonces, 1 lineup, no coincidence. Jimmy Savile, Rolf Harris, Tim Westwood, Hugh Edwards, and Philip Schofield. Oh yeah, we've just got a Facebook message. Let's get interactive. Jess tells us it's Ian from Lost Prophets. Went out with Fern Cotton. So yeah, you were right. Well done. Dear oh dear.
Guess you.
Let me just get some graphics off back here. The screen is a bit better. That's better. So guess you. At the start of the week, nobody knew who it was, who apparently is like the latest person to be put through the peasant grinder for being a nonce. No one knew who it was. Apparently, we'd heard Hugh Edwards. Someone else said Graham Norton.
Graham Norton's too obvious.
Graham Norton is too obvious. But look at the faces here. I mean, obviously there's little kids holding Jimmy Savile. There's Gary Glitter. Max Egan. Is that Jim Davidson? This is not a Rise Above meme. I don't know who made this. But here is a Rise Above meme. This is from Johnny Fogg. Guess Hugh. The thing is, I woke up on Monday morning to a picture, that picture of him with his arse out. That's the first thing I saw on Monday morning. Someone messaged it to me. And I got to work. And my mum came and she was like on the phone to my auntie, like going, "Oh, who is it?" And the first thing she said, "Go, well, who is it then?" And I just hold up the phone to go, "There you go." She said, and then 4 or 5 days later, people have started sending me the message again. I was like, "Wow, I must have got that really early," because it's like it didn't even probably break till 2 or 3 days later. Oh. But I mean, what do you say about something like this? So. This is a much better one. Guess who? Now this is from Auntie Koviet. I know it's Phil. We've got everyone on there. Andy Peters, Steve Coogan.
Mr. Blobby.
Oh no, actually it's Alan Partridge. It's not Steve Coogan. It's actually Alan Partridge. Yeah, Mr. Blobby.
Duck. Okay, no.
Roland Rapp.
Yeah.
Noel Edmonds. So. I would say that this is some sort of continuation of the Philip Schofield ritual.
Yeah, I'd agree.
I think this is going to be something that's now just constantly rinsed and repeated until it's fully normalised.
Yeah, it's a little bit coincidental though, isn't it? You know, like pops out of Philip Schofield and then on almost within a matter of weeks.
Well, it's almost as soon as the Philip Schofield wave had died down.
Yeah,
another wave crashes onto the shore.
Yeah, I just like. How can people not just think that's a bit coincidental?
But both of them, they wanted to make you feel sorry for. Hugh was in hospital.
Yeah,
and Philip didn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
Well, Philip was brave for coming out as gay, and Hugh, that it's like they have a whole backstory of this mental health thing that they're just going on straight away. Since when is having a mental health issue like excuse for exploit? I mean, I think the story is that they exploited someone that was quite young, like 17, which I guess is a code word for a kid. Because it's always like 17. Like Jeffrey Epstein was just having massages from 17-year-olds.
From the age of 17 till 20 odd, whatever he is now, right? And apparently he's a crackhead. And the reason he's a crackhead is because of the continued money that Hugh sent him. 30 grand.
£35,000 for pictures. What kind of pictures were they? What's so great about this guy? Who has any pictures that are worth £35,000?
Think about it, right? If you're a nonce, yeah, you want to control someone, who's easier to control, crackhead or a normie?
Oh, certainly.
Clearly a normie.
I wonder. Well, or a normie that's a crackhead for double compliance.
There we go.
But I mean, I think this is a pattern and a program which is now just going to be rinsed and repeated, like we're seeing with so many other of these themes.
Yeah,
just one after another, because there's not going to be any shortage of subjects for this ritual. I wouldn't say.
Sure. No way. It's an easy one for them to roll out every time. The BBC's, they've been primed for it now. Jimmy's been priming it for a long time.
Sorry, just adding an extra camera there so we can. Let me just put Omar Beats on so we can properly see.
There he is.
There he is. That's better. Welcome, Omar.
Thank you.
So, guess who? I know it's Phil, and obviously it's Matthew Greevy. Is his name Matthew or something Greevy there? So great work from Auntie Kovic. She always sort of like manages to taste the flavour of the week and regurgitate it onto everyone's screen.
She's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, and this is no different. For anyone that doesn't know what a twink is, it's don't ask me how I know this. It's a term in, I believe it's sort of like in the gay scene for like a teenage boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
that's a new one to me.
Yeah, I only know it because the Empress has got some gay friends, and sometimes she tells me about like that sort of like words in that culture like bear and chicken.
Right.
Like, do you know what that means? Like a big hairy bloke is called a bear.
Right.
And a little skinny effeminate dude is called a chicken. I laughed when I heard about this as well. But a twink apparently is like a young teenage boy.
Right.
So this is Hugh Edwards on the box of Twinks, 10 individually wrapped cakes, creamy filling.
That's all that. If you like calling it a twink, yeah, the name twink alone sort of like says kid.
Yeah, well,
it's moving towards the paedophile thing. I'm not saying that like that's what they're using it for. In the
listen,
industry, but like,
correct me if I'm wrong. Before the Philip Schofield thing broke, this was my prediction. I said something like this. This and following rituals are going to be used to normalise grooming of kids. And the way it's going to be done, the thin end of the wedge that's going to be shoved under the door, is the idea that within the gay scene, it's accepted for teenage boys coming of age to have these relationships with fully grown men.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's quite an easy way of them doing it.
Because this is already the line that people like Peter Tatchell and those ones that are always trying to get the age of consent down. This is what the line that they come with. I'm not. I don't have a horse in this race, but I'm just saying this. I said this is how it's going to happen, and it seems like we're having one example after another.
Yeah.
To put it on the table, to normalise it, to contextualise it, and they're 18, they're 17. Oh, they're 14.
Yeah.
Oh, they're 12.
Yeah.
9.
Yeah.
And people say this the slippery slope, and that's always seen as like a right wing bigoted argument. Oh, the slippery slope. Well, say what you want, but the slippery slope is that now we're having things like drag queen story hour, drag kids, and the normalisation of this stuff. All the time, 40, 50, 60-year-old dudes, 17-year-old guys.
They're just shoving it down your throat now, aren't they?
Yeah. So, really nice selection from the Ras Header tonight. Different kind of set from him. We like it. Got to keep it bouncing. Got to get my weed in. High grade by the ounce in. Got to keep it better moving. Got to keep it better bouncing. Sound of raw tender, tearing down the house in. I grab the mic and then I'm announcing. Auntie Covey, I've got enough in the account to buy a kilogram of zero in now. We're moving up. Send me 1 metric ton of zero in. Young boy. This one goes out to Hugh Edwards. This one goes out to Philip Schofield. Young boy. This is going to go out to the PDL. Pedo Defence League. Predator Defence League. Young boy. Young boy. Young boy. Young boy. This is going to make a really good edit, Slick Rick. Young boy.
Suck me tongue.
Suck my tongue, the Dalai
Suck
Lama.
me fucking tongue, you bomber clock. Round, 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 round.
Michael.
Wheel and deal.
Michael.
Put up them ting right there. So the kidney fiddlers out there.
We just dissolved the vapor canopy above the studio. We just blasted a hole in it.
Penetrate it.
Like the ozone layer in the 1990s, Michael. We just
Perforate that shit.
Young boy. Young boy. I was going to think of Philip Schofield when I hear this tune now. Oh, mix. Right, Teddy, you're killing it.
Inner.
Pull up that young boy.
Inner E. Yes. Oh my gosh.
It's too much. It's too much.
Listen if you want. Mixing up a run. Get your swerve on. El Manic nice obsession. Listen this you want. Mixing up a run. Raw tender.
Does Jason think that the reset cycle is somehow connected to the level of consciousness among the human population?
100%. Let me explain why. The 1902, it's very obvious that the elite were waiting for something, and it didn't happen to the magnitude that they were expecting. So it was like a breath of fresh air. I have like 7 videos on 1902 explaining all the new stuff, new innovations, new text, translations of old text, new inventions, and the origin of all the Fortune 500 companies that exist today. All can be traced back to companies that started in 1902. So even Harley Davidson, 1903. And I have listed these countries, these companies. I have very impressive videos showing all this phenomenon. And it's amazing that it's almost as if the elite, okay, cool, nothing happened. So they came back up and they unleashed all their technology, and they even unleashed their new libraries. New publishing companies appeared producing new libraries full of all new books telling all new versions of the historical past.
And you also commented in the last video as well about the stock exchange being redone at that time as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, the stock exchange, but it was also all the elite families were in on it. The Carnegies funded thousands of libraries, and so did the Rockefellers, and so did the Rothschilds. They were all in on it. They were all building new libraries for new communities and stocking them all up with new books from new publishing companies that were just created. What happened has been so widely covered up. It is amazing that Charles Fort and myself were able to put all this data together to show it in videos. It's amazing. But people all over the world have done their own homework. They've been sending me the microfiche files from their own little community libraries, and everything I've said in these 1902 videos is true. A red star did appear in the sky. Strange phenomena were seen in the sky for about a 3-month period. Red dust, red rain, red mud, volcanic activity, earthquakes, all these things were reported in the microfiche and the local level. But on the national and international level, it was censorship. Nothing is mentioned.
So if you think about what's happening now with the change of the internet styles going from you can find any research on the internet like a library, and then you're going to be asking the internet questions, and that's it. That's the same process, isn't it?
I agree.
Rise above, generate, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above, abstract stillness, rise above, domino, rise above, extinguish fear, rise above, extinguish fear when we generate. Since day one we've been going in militant, not same, also different, abstract stillness, no equivalent, a double L's flows omnipotent, may I suggest a lyric proof vest, I got a bar that will tear through a chest, cause a massacre from my caliber, your Kevlar can't protect. Anyway, back to the subject, expose devilish acts to the public, and talk topics they won't publish, instigating cold wars like Sputnik, observe you with a satellite view, heard the cattle these parasites do, worshipping the gods of our conquerors, it's a blinded acolyte view, members the spineless remain reminded, they drink blood and sacrifice you, so misguided, laws are provided, to benefit the chosen few, so we rise above and extinguish fear when we generate love, a single candle lights up the darkness, that is the power we all harness. Let's identify targets, light them up, lick them down. Carpet beef, sprinkling garnish. The message, word, power, sound. I don't care if my whip gets tarnished. Split this shit till I'm dead in the ground. When they pollute your mind with garbage, do one thing, just hold it down. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate, rise above. Extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate love. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate, rise above. Extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above and extinguish fear when we generate. It's more than 232s in a hook. You want lyrics? I write books. Where your head double L overtook with a statement you can't overlook, and I drop rhymes you can't unhear. Plot lines never unclear, and I tell them direct to your ear. I doubt the signs that guided us here. And these lies from lost puppeteers who cut through throats like Schwartz buccaneers. Call to arms, don't volunteer. Or take orders from brigadier. From war and carnage they profiteer. The march goes on till we disappear. It's my duty to interfere. Smash them system like chandelier. MC chat about whips and cars. I rap bars about pyramids on Mars. Another weird subjects hidden for years, locked in casks. Strap a protective mask, inform your collective war and star. It's a harrowing task, and I'm swimming in fears on a narrowing path. I'm powering past all these bullshit rappers will devour you last, and they're carrying fast. Drop from the top of a towering shaft, push from the ledge of a soaring peak. Shook from the pledge of my war and speak. Close to the edge, the outlook's bleak. Frozen breath cause the output's weak. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate, rise above. Extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, extinguish fear when we generate love. Rise above when we generate. Rise above, generate, rise above. Extinguish fear when we generate. Rise above when we generate. Rise above and extinguish fear when we generate.
This is another public service announcement live from the Peasantron Wednesdays. Big shout out to everyone that's tuned in tonight to our Friday night Schwab show. We will be back live in 2 weeks. Right. This, I personally think, is one of the most important things we've ever done.
Did you just say Reich? Or right?
Did I just say right?
No, you said right.
Sorry, I've got the trans-European far right on my mind. Right, for anyone that's wondering what this is, and then anyone on YouTube that's watching, I just need to let you know these saucy symbols here. We do not support any of these messages that is in this expose, in this documentary. This is to bring things to light and to expose things, right?
Believe me, this isn't our ideology.
Yeah, this is not our ideology. And if you're wondering what the trans-European far right is, you have to subscribe to Peasantron. We need to get that camera sorted out.
There's no way this goes out on YouTube, guys. It is spicy.
Conversations with Nix is going to be an ongoing thing. We're about to record part 2 of this conversation this night on Wednesday, 9th of October. Part 1 came out on Peasantron yesterday for you guys that are watching on a Friday. This one is an hour long, and we've had a really in-depth conversation.
It was a good starting point.
Yeah,
but there's more to come.
There's a lot more to come, and you know, we can't even really talk about what this is about on YouTube for fear of the the content moderators giving us a strike or whatever.
Even the thumbnail is
slightly dodgy. Yeah, it could probably get us in trouble. So once again, make sure you subscribe to Patreon for the first of our series of conversations with Nix, our reporter, our informant,
on the ground reporter,
boots on the ground reporter. So big shout to Nix,
guys. It's a mere $3.33 a month, or if you're from the UK, it's £3. Yeah, it's really not a lot of money. You get all the best first content that we can't show on YouTube, and you get lots of other peaks as well.
Yeah, and basically things that we can never talk about on YouTube.
Hence the trans-European far right.
Yeah, so get onto Peasantron now. The link is in the description, and we will also have a QR code on the screen. Okay, back to the swab. We'll be back soon. Up next, we have the one, the only, Human Vibration. Welcome back.
Hey guys, I'm so excited.
How you doing?
To be back.
Good evening.
Excellent. Good evening. Good evening to you. It is still daytime over here, but I'm glad to be spending this evening with y'all. Glad
Absolutely.
to be back.
So you've got yourself a new pad we can see.
Yes, it's much lighter, much brighter. The last one, it was like a cave, so I feel like I finally have the light for all my light work.
Awesome. You've upgraded your studio setup as well, sounding crisp.
It's my Shure microphone. Thank you so much.
It sounds almost sure sounds good. Right. So
yeah,
it's great to have you back. Last time you were on, your presentation was shadow play, and you were talking about illusions. We were talking about digital illusionary technology that's been used to present false narratives to us, right? And you went in. It was spectacular. Everybody loved it. Tonight, we're talking about space. And you've got a presentation, and I haven't looked at it yet. This is a proper surprise. It's called Space, Where No One Can Hear You Scream. And I didn't really give you much of a brief to this. I gave you a few points, like, we're going to be talking about, what is space, illusions that we might have been presented. So I'm still going to hand it over to you because everyone's waiting to hear what you've got to say about this. If we could share the screen again, please, producer.
So a couple of people this week asked me who hadn't seen our previous show with you on. They asked me, so who is Human Vibration? I just said, check her out, mate. She's a deception specialist.
Yeah, a deception specialist. That's
I
how we.
love that.
Deception specialist.
A deception sniper hunter.
Yeah, nice.
You set me up well, first of all, let me just say I looked up the parent company of Krispy Kreme, and absolutely it's Jab.
Yeah.
Capital J, capital A, capital B.
That's
holding company, Jab Holding Company.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't see me. I was in the green room, but I was hitting myself on the forehead. I was like, this is one of those moments. I have to physically represent this moment in my brain. Like, brain, this is when it wraps around itself. This is when everything just wraps around. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So space. Last time I was on, we talked about illusion. We talked a lot about illusion, hit it from all sorts of different angles. But it was all really contained in our world here, what we see through our screens, but more from like the news and what's happening in our day-to-day lives and what we think is happening in other people's day-to-day lives, and kind of like our shared reality we experience here through stories, sensational stories, news stories. You guys went into a lot of stuff, in your intro. There's lots of various ways people are seeing the world right now. So we kind of talked about those types of illusions last time. So to do space is really interesting for me because it's both totally new and different, but it's also very much the same. So let me jump in.
Let's go.
I remember the one thing that really stuck out to me about space is when I was a kid, we learned about space and dinosaurs pretty much right off the bat. And I remember the anecdote my teacher saying one time, we were learning about how space was a vacuum and sound doesn't travel in a vacuum. And I remember hearing the phrase, space, it's where no one can hear you scream. And I remember thinking as a kid, like, that is the most terrifying thing I've ever heard in my life. And that next slide is kind of, I just looked up that phrase, and it's basically a representation of that experience. I think it's been in a movie. I'm not sure if this is like a movie cover for something, but that next slide is like basically how you feel when you're stuck in space, screaming, nobody can hear you scream, and you're basically dead. So I remember, it's like, wow, that's kind of a graphic part of our, of our learning experience as an elementary school student. It seems kind of unnecessary, but, I think that that's a part of it. And so like the next concept. So yeah, there's that little guy. He's lost.
That is awesome.
It's, that's kind of what I pictured. Your space thing is broken and you've lost all your oxygen and you can't take one more breath and nobody can hear you scream and you die alone and you float off into the endlessness of space. And I remember learning that in 2nd or 3rd grade and being like, oh, okay, that's serious. I don't want to go there. Space, not for me. Space is for the astronauts, but I don't want to be an astronaut because I don't want to be in that pickle one day. And I think like it kind of goes to this next idea of up and out, just from like foundational level before we really get into space. I think from the foundational level, we really do learn about space and dinosaurs as kids. I feel like those are two things that every kid is bombarded with.
They're quite foundational, aren't they? They're like, I know. I resonate with that. Two things: space and dinosaurs.
I think so. The next one is basically our childhood. This is my childhood right here. Space and dinosaurs. If it was, this is everything. This was entertainment and education.
These were the cool things to learn about at school.
So just question, guys. Do you think that's equally applicable these days now in 2021?
I'm not sure.
Do you? I mean,
for little kids, I think space books, dinosaur books. I think
still
a lot of that is
very prominent as opposed to other things. Yeah,
and it's also educational. Now you give your kids educational books about the solar system, and that's considered that's considered better than maybe a fairy tale, or whatever. Even though both have extreme embedded knowledge, these Grimm's brothers fairy tales can actually be, pretty historically significant. Anyway, so that all to say, we kind of get bombarded with space. Okay, so before we really get into, I want to say I don't really have a thought on the shape. I don't. I don't care what the shape is. I have never been to space. I've never been close to space. I've never been able to personally gauge what it looks like from the outside for myself. That said, I don't care what its shape is. I think that there's lots of observations about how we learn about space that are important regardless of what its shape is. And the next slide is kind of like, this is what I had thought space was, because I really got on observationally, it feels flat to me. I definitely don't think we're on a spinning ball, whirling around at 1,000,000 miles per hour, swirling around, like going forever, endless in infinity, swirling around all these other things, never stopping, meteors all around.
With the universe itself expanding and getting ever bigger.
Yeah. I don't buy that. I don't buy that because when we go up into an airplane and we hit a cloud, everything is like, and it's like, whoa, we just went through some clouds. Oh my gosh. But yet here on Earth, hurling through space, things growing all around us, constant upheaval, could be knocked off our axis at any moment. We never feel one thing. We never feel anything. We don't feel any sort of disturbance. So that always didn't really sit right with me. But observationally, so I was like, I don't think we're spinning on a ball. I really think that at some point something would happen if we were constantly moving, constantly up against all these other things, all these interferences, all these things happening. I think that we would feel it more. Anyway, so that's just like observational how I feel. But also observationally, it looks flat to me. I don't see a curve when I go up into an airplane. I don't see a curve when I look at how the sun travels. So observationally, I'm on board with it could be flat. And so I kind of thought about this one with the ice wall, because that's where you go if you're in the flat Earth world. But again, I kind of got to a point where I was like, this might be limiting as well. I might just, does it really matter what shape it is? All these observational things could be input in some other way. I could be experiencing these observational understanding of the world in a way, regardless of the shape of the actual shape of the planet.
I mean, anyway. I would agree with you, human vibration, and say that everyone who subscribes to flat Earth or spherical Earth, flat Earth or crater Earth or whatever shape Earth, apart from the mainstream narrative, we can all agree that it's not correct. It's not actually correct. We don't think it's right. That's the one thing we can all agree on.
So many for a reason. There's even Neil deGrasse Tyson once said that it's more like an eggplant shape. I mean, just the idea that it could be oblonged eggplant, like an irregular oblong.
Sure.
Totally cancels out this perfection spherical containment. You know? And just the idea that we can, a heralded astrophysicist, I put that in quotes because he's basically an actor, but the fact that he can go and say that, no, it's not quite spherical. It's more of a eggplant shape where it's like
another expert.
Right. The fact that he can even say that and none of us go, wait a second, wouldn't that cancel out every piece of physics that everything has ever been, like every formula NASA has ever used for trajectories on things? Like if the shape, can the shape of the earth just change like that? Like, can it just, anyway, I talk fast when I talk fast when I talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson because he's a real.
You got a lot to say about the guy. Yeah.
He's a real disinformation agent, if you ask me.
He's literally a paid liar, isn't he?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too.
You seen the him on Joe Rogan?
Oh yeah, it's like licking each other's bum holes.
And he's always talking about being up on the mountain. That particular episode about Neil deGrasse Tyson and on Joe Rogan's show is one of my favorites to re-listen to because I always catch another little inside joke BS that they're just he thinks he's so anyway. Okay, enough about that. Man, that makes me okay. So all that to say, I don't think the shape matters. I'm not on one side or the other. I think that the shape argument shouldn't be an argument at all. And I think that it's an argument for a reason. I think they're making us, putting us on, it's a very polarizing issue. I think that it's shape discussion and it's fascinating and we should be talking about the shape. So I'm not dismissing it, but I'm also not saying I know what
you're not ready to die on one side of the battlefield.
No, not on this hill. Okay. So the next slide is kind of where I'm at. This is the only shape that matters. This is the journey. This is what we're all on. They want us looking up and out. They want us looking up for answers outside of ourselves, into space, far beyond what we can actually observe with our own two eyes, with our own intuitions, with our own human vibrations, all vibing around, all kind of like picking up things. They want us believing that there's something far, far beyond that only they can get to through these complicated space agencies, and because it's very dangerous and you're going to die and nobody can hear you scream and da 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 da. Okay.
Do you know what this symbol looks like? Has anyone seen Westworld?
This is the Westworld symbol. However, this is the Hopi Indian.
Is this from Westworld? Is it the same one?
This is what Westworld's based on. This is the Hopi
Indian.
I
thought so.
Mm-hmm. This is the maze. This is the original labyrinth. This is the Hopi Indian representation of the labyrinth of the maze within. And the labyrinth is an absolutely fascinating. I could have a whole presentation on the concept of a labyrinth, but basically your whole life is leading you in a direction, and that direction can be winding and all around. It can lead you far. It's all going inside, but you can make it as complicated as it will allow. And you could make it so complicated that you can never find the truth in the center, or you can find ways to simplify your own inner labyrinth, and your journey, you will find what you'll find. It's the answer is always within. Anyway, so space and dinosaurs. I think dinosaurs make us look back really far at a place that didn't exist, or a time that is incomprehensible to us. And then space makes us look out to a place that we can't comprehend again. And so it's like, anyway,
like a diversion.
Yeah, just keeping us from looking within and present moment and all that stuff for answers that whatever. Okay, Disney magic. I think this is okay. This is where it's at. So it's the connection between Walt Disney and NASA is pretty fascinating. And Disney is ubiquitous. Disney still has a kind of a stranglehold on our media saturation. Like even things we don't realize are owned by Disney are Disney entities, like ESPN and ABC, and the world of Disney is basically are still to this day saturating everything that we take.
The world of Disney is exactly that.
We live in Disney World. We live in Disney World right now, all of us. We don't realize it, but we do, and we always have. And Disney and NASA, they had a you can go ahead and scroll just a bit. They had a pretty incredible relationship, in so much as Disney was, before anybody knew what space looked like. It wasn't until 1946 that we had any notion of what space looked like. Not a clue. We didn't even know what it looked like. But in that time, there was connections between. Okay, so this is a rendering of so in 1930, before we knew anything about space, they were naming planets after Disney things. Pluto debuted in 1930, and Pluto, the planet, was named in 1930, which I think is a really interesting naming connection. Yeah, and the dates align strangely. And so Disney was already in 1930, before we even knew what anything looked like in space, because it wasn't until 1946 that we even had our first image of space, and I have a thing about that in a little bit. But you can scroll down too. Okay, so the next thing that Disney started to do, before we even knew what space looked like, Disney was imagining what space was. And they were creating all of this media about space. They were creating for NASA to teach the NASA engineers and the NASA rocketeers and the public about imagining how to get to space and what space. These are technical films. And what we're seeing right here, one is the Space Odyssey, which is Kubrick, and we'll get into him in a minute because I think that's a really interesting rabbit hole to dive down. But on the left is one of the first Disney's. And before we went to the moon, Disney imagined what the moon experience would be like, and that's what kind of introduced the public to this whole visualization of space and the moon. And we had no clue. We had absolutely no clue. But Disney was imagining these things for us, and incredibly, space ended up looking just like Disney thought. It's really
coincidence. What a coincidence.
It's absolutely incredible. So the next two slides are just to show. I've highlighted. So like in the 50s, Walt Disney Productions is creating basically routes to space. These are very technical rocketeering cartoons, and they're basically building their physics based on these technical Disney films for like the Aeronautics Foundation. Like it's kind of, when you think about the chicken and the egg, it's like, who was teaching who? Was Disney teaching NASA scientists how to do rockets, or was NASA influencing Disney and saying, "Hey, Disney, this is how it works. We need you to make it kind of sounds like Disney was telling NASA, well, here's how space works, and then magically space looked like that." Sure. And then the next one is a similar example. So there's these films that were basically about this film influenced. It also influenced the 2001 Space Odyssey, but it was. Again, another technical film by a former Disney animator. And so basically, if you had worked with Disney at this time, then you could get hired and work within NASA in their kind of development of these movies before we went to space. So okay, so here's one of the movies, and this is Werner von Braun, and he's a really fascinating character, and I don't have enough to really do a super deep dive on his background, but his background is really interesting. How he came over here is very interesting. I'm not going to touch on that on my segment, but like Werner von Braun, he's got a really interesting background before he made
I'm really glad you brought him up, because I have a feeling that our guest that's coming up after you at roughly 9:30, 10 o'clock, Tayshawn from GFC TV, is actually going to be going into detail of exactly who von Braun was. Okay, and good. Where he came from and his connections and a whole lot more. So wait around for that human vibration. This is awesome. Do you know, I'm just going to say one thing, and I know what people are watching are thinking. This Walt Disney connection is big, because our favorite creator that we keep going on about, Godvag, as we call him,
he's already done a couple of episodes about Walt Disney.
Yeah.
And exactly
Fascinating
what Walt
character.
Disney. Yeah. So we
Yeah.
are.
And
we are
I don't even
seriously
really
digging
get
this.
into Walt Disney here. So there's just there's so much.
Just the Disney connection you presented so far is another piece of the puzzle that we've already
crazy.
been looking at. So yeah,
Cool.
excellent.
So you'll see here you'll see that shape. If you go up just real quick, note that shape on the right. So this is an atomic spaceship. Before they even really know what space looks like, they already know that they're going to be powered by a nuclear powered atomic spaceships. We don't even know what an atom is, really. We haven't really been explained at this point. We don't know what really nuclear energy is. We don't know what atoms are.
Yeah, this thing on the right, that looks like Elysium with that film with the South African director. And that's what everyone lives
They
at.
used the shape. So scroll up. This is the next one. So this is where it debuted. Walt Disney's space station. This is what this is before, again, like they are designing. This is before anything was in space. This is before we were in space. They have these. This is before anything was put into space. This is their idea of space station. And
we live in Disneyland.
We live in Disneyland.
Actually live in Disneyland.
Yeah, and if you keep scrolling, and there's a lot of cartoons went into, like actual cartoons went into, and they call them science factual cartoons. Disney put them out, and they would call them science factual instead of science fiction. And just to say, the cartoons is an interesting tidbit because this literal cartoon that we see right now was in the Apollo 13 official flight plan. In their booklet that went up to space to guide them to space, they were asked about this. NASA was asked, like, why was there cartoons in this important flight document that had all these trajectories and basically all this math that the guys were supposed to be checking off and all these procedures and, like, why do you have cartoons? How do they have time for this? And they just said it was going to be a jokey surprise. There was no really explanation. They just said, oh, it's just going to be a jokey surprise for them to discover. While they're doing all their other important stuff, we're just going to hide some. And this is just one of many. There were many cartoons all throughout the flight plan. So cartoons and NASA seem to kind of go hand in hand. Okay. So we kind of talked about that atomic idea. This is another thing that Walt Disney or Disney Productions put out, and it was to educate the public. People were like, what's an atomic space station? So they put out all this, they put out stuff about, like, what is the atom? They began to teach us in like the 50s about what an atom is. And this is when we got really introduced to this type of molecular science, this type of atomic science. We didn't really know anything about that before either. So Disney was beginning to tell us about that. And I think that there's something on this page. I'm going to read it. Let me pull it up really big on my screen. It says, hold on. It's kind of what I talk about all the time. Hold on. I need to get better at this. It says, the discovery of the atom. Said, like the atom. Oh gosh, I just lost it. Man, I'm taking too much time with this one. It says, like the atom, the electron had a name before it was discovered. And with the atom, the discovery of the electron was only a question of time because it really did and does exist. Because it really did and does exist. I feel like if you're explaining anything, you really don't have to say and remind people that,
you don't have to emphasize the fact that it's
because
real.
It really did.
I promise it exists.
Because it did and does exist. Not just it did then, it does exist now too. Like
that sounds like something from the pages of a Disney fairy tale. It did and it does exist, like Fantasia or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to put it. I think you're exactly right. It does sound like Disney speak, almost like Dr. Seussian too, which just got canceled in the United States.
Yeah,
which
just got cancelled for being racist.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Like redfish, bluefish is very racist.
I mentioned it on the show last week. I literally remember reading Starbelly Sneetches on the beaches, and I knew when I was young this is a metaphor to explain why racism is wrong. That was my first ever memory of Dr. Seuss. Yeah. That it was teaching us that racism was wrong. So that's why he's being cancelled. So we don't learn that important lesson. We continue to fight. Drawing of a Chinese person eating noodles. I was like, come on, there's much more racist things than that. Anyway, sorry for distracting you.
Well, it's an important. It's on the topic right now. Dr. Seuss and Disney are kind of connected. Yeah. So this atomic symbol, and this kind of brings us also into other creators. We're talking about creators, talking about Disney. We're talking about Dr. Seuss, influencers, and now we're going to talk about Kubrick for a minute. But this atomic shape really reminded me, and if you kind of click through the next couple of slides, if you click through the next couple of slides, you'll see how, so this atomic shape reminded me of another shape that I was familiar with. It kind of goes into this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's 2001: A Space Odyssey. So this is Kubrick, and this was the 2001: A Space Odyssey was created and filmed before we went, to the moon, before we went to space, before we had our first, manned mission on the moon, and it really
it's just more coincidences.
It's extraordinarily coincidental, and you can keep scrolling down, and it kind of comes back real quick. So this shape really got me. And then I was like, how have I seen this shape again? And so there's 2001. And then here is an overlay of Space Mountain, Disney's Space Mountain, the ride.
Right. Yeah.
Just keep going. And then you'll end up at the final Space Mountain. But this image is like, it's like a through line. I was like, oh, this thing is that, and that thing is this, and it all kind of connects. So if you go to the next one, we kind of get into the whole idea of, Kubrick, and he really was working with NASA. They were very aware of his work. He began working on it in 64, and then so that's way before. That's 5 years before we went to the moon, and it debuted in 1968, a year before we went to the moon, and it basically designed our whole idea of what outer space would be. Primed us. It primed our brains.
It's predictive programming of sorts.
It felt like, and I don't really have I don't have a firm grasp on if Kubrick helped film the moon landings. I don't know that. What I do know is that Kubrick created something prior to this moon landing that seems extraordinarily influential on us, not necessarily on NASA, but on us, on like how we accept space. And so maybe he didn't, maybe not. The question is, did Kubrick fake the moon land? Did Kubrick help NASA fake the moon landings? I don't know if that's the question. Maybe the question is like, did Kubrick create something that would make us believe the moon landings? And I think the answer to that is absolutely yes.
I would say so, yeah.
The next one is, so this was 1946. This was our first image of space. This was the first time that we saw space. And yeah, we'd never seen Earth from outer space before this moment. Disney had created some stuff. We had seen a few things from space, or a few things of space from Disney through NASA. We didn't know it was from NASA, but it was actually created by Disney. We were not aware at this point of Disney's connection with NASA. But so this was actually from the White Sands Missile Range. They sent up a rocket that went like 60 miles up, 65 miles up is what they said. And it took this image. And this is our first understanding of what the Earth looked like from space. And this is not only our first image of Earth from space, this is just our first image of space. We had never been to space before, never seen space, never understood space. So if you go to the next one, in 1963, this is where our technology was. We were doing models. We were doing models of, while Stanley Kubrick was basically writing 2001: A Space Odyssey and kind of looking a lot like this. We were at this stage. This is a NASA model. This is as far as they were. They were doing really complex, really complicated models, but we were like nowhere near building machinery. This is 1963. So in 1969, so 6 years later. 6 years later is our next slide.
In just 6 years.
And this is on the moon. This isn't a model. This is on the moon.
Sure.
This is in space.
With no stars in the background.
This thing with 0 stars in the background. Nothing. This is on the moon. This is our idea. And this is like better. This is better than what we saw as the public. This is better. This is like crisper, and I mean, it looks more ridiculous because it's the high definition actually makes us see that this is comically bad, comically amateur, comically juvenile, comically amateur. So it really highlights that. And the graininess from the footage, I think, is what made it seem more realistic, because it was like so grainy, we just couldn't see. We kind of get that today with even today, some things it's 2021 and we can't seem to get a clear video of certain things. And it's like, oh, come on, guys. So, I mean, this is what we were dealing with. Oh, the next one really sums up. If I had to put my favorite moment from space, from humans' journey is to space, I think the most incredible achievement was the ability to call space with no interruption.
Yeah,
in 1969,
100%.
no delay, crisp, clear conversation on a landline, on like a little, they didn't even upgrade the phone. It was just like a regular looking phone. I think they maybe wrote space on it, but
they wrote space on it. Come on.
All that to say, it didn't look remarkably different than any other thing, and I think that's one of the most incredible aspects of calling space. Is I can't even call my mom in a couple cities over and have a clear connection. Okay, my other favorite idea of space is this concept of our understanding. My favorite idea of our understanding of space is the idea that we lost all that technology. Not only was that technology looked like tinfoil, like that's your technology, it's tinfoil.
And like paper mache, tinfoil, and cardboard. It's rubbish.
Yeah, the whole
rubbish.
idea. NASA has famously has been on record saying that they lost it. We simply have not been able to return to the moon because
it probably disintegrated. Probably just fell to pieces. They kept it in a box, and they look back 30 years later. It's just a load of dust. It's just fell to pieces.
If you notice the magenta in the back of this,
it's very purple. It's very purple. Yeah. I actually have a little section on that, just because it's my favorite thing to talk about. So I have a little section on purples in space. So. Of course. So again, this is the technology that I lost. I think they could find it in a dumpster behind any
look at that. Look at the state of that.
Yeah,
like that.
It literally looks like tracing paper, very carefully laid over a framework of those pipe cleaners.
It looks like
you'd have to lay it over carefully to not break it because it looks so fragile. It looks like it's made of pipe cleaners.
It looks like it's broken in a couple of places. Interesting. Well,
they're going to get through the atmosphere, is it?
The next slide, I think, is the real technology that they need to go back looking for, because I think one of my suppositions is that NASA is not a space agency, but a helium agency. They're the biggest consumer of helium in the world is NASA, followed by the United States Department of Defense. They buy up all the world's helium. If there's ever any helium shortages, this is because NASA's going to send in extra things.
But wait a minute. Isn't helium, apart from obviously hot air balloons, the other use for it is deep sea diving, right? Because you mix helium with gas. Do you know about this?
No. Very cold and make something sink with that's.
Well, I believe that if you're a deep sea diver, they mix helium with with oxygen to counteract the pressure and when you're going that deep. So why would NASA be consuming so much helium if as above? Exactly. That's what I brought up. Or as Inner Guardian says, as without, so within. And he'll be jumping back in soon. He's just transferring to his new off-grid dojo room. He's specially prepared. Yeah. So yeah, as without, so within, as above, so below.
So I think that there's a very significant reason of why NASA needs helium, and I think that a lot of our ideas of what rocketry is supported by airlifting and by airships, and maybe like in actual weather balloons that go. I think maybe some things that we think of our satellites are just high altitude orbiting helium-based things to get them up there, and then they get into a section of our still low Earth orbit. I think things are just kind of going into low Earth orbit, and they're being sent. Can I
just point something out on this photo you've got here?
Oh, this is the Hindenburg. Yes.
Yeah, you see this tower on the right-hand side that the Hindenburg is sort of crashing into. Mm-hmm. Look at the base of it, and there's two characters that are just silhouetted next to that box. Look how big they are.
It looks like
they're massive
hands too. They're like,
but do they look a little bit big compared to everything else there? I mean, look at everything else in the foreground and the background.
And look at the top, right at the top.
There's just people.
Is that a totally fake, fabricated reset photo?
Very casual. Everyone looks very casual for the Hindenburg.
For what's happening.
I believe that the Hindenburg was a fabricated hoax to scare. I'm so glad you guys brought this up, because this is a wonderful transition for me. Thank you. I think that the Hindenburg was a purposefully executed experience, a hoax, just so the public
false flag,
but a purposeful one based on helium, so that we would think that helium air travel was bad and we weren't going to do it. Like, oh, we'll never do that again because look what happened to the Hindenburg. Meanwhile,
Everyone died in a big fireball.
Yeah,
basically.
everyone died.
I mean, I've seen a little bit of footage of this. It might only be 15 or 20 seconds long, and it's literally, it looks very bad. There are people running along, and as it's coming down very slowly, and they're sort of engulfed in flames.
Yes.
I mean, it's very grainy. I've got no idea if it's real or not, but it looked really bad. I remember seeing it when I was a kid, and like, my mum goes, "Oh God, I remember seeing that when I was a kid," because it's obviously older than her as well. It's sort of, it's been imprinted into generations about this. This is what happens when you have a massive hot air balloon. Everyone burns in a big fireball. So true.
Don't try that at home, kids.
I've never thought about this before.
Well,
yes, producer, someone on the top as well, just casually stood on the top of that tower, the massive fireball. 2 people. It looks like they're talking to each other, like with some pugilist sticks or something. What the hell? I'd like John Levy to have a look at this photo.
Absolutely, yeah. He'd get a towel on this.
Oh, I'd love to get John Levy on this show, I swear. Right, so yeah.
I think your point about the theatrics of this photo, a fiery crash, everyone dying in a fiery crash. This is what NASA's all about. This is NASA's jam. So ultimately, I think NASA.
Oh, yeah, the producers just pointed out bottom left-hand corner. There's a pyramid as well.
I see that. It's like an Aztec pyramid down there. It's got all.
Yeah.
Of
Where was this supposed to have happened?
The Hindenburg. Oh, I gotta look that back up. I think it was in the United States.
Wherever it is, it's got a pyramid.
Wherever it is, it didn't happen. Wherever it was supposed to have happened.
Human vibration called it. You heard it here first. The Hindenburg didn't happen.
The Hindenburg hoax.
Or it happened, but nobody died. It could be just a theatrical setting off of a whatever. They could have blown up an airship, but if nobody died, then it was just theatrics. And I have a feeling that it was just theatrics. And I think that I talk about the concept of loosh, and that's we're kind of getting into this next section quite beautifully. And that's because I think NASA is a loosh factory, and basically it is. If you guys want to scroll, it's
next slide, please, producer. Welcome, spoken word nerd, to the panel.
Hi guys, sorry I'm late. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yep, sounding great, mate. Have you watched the presentation so far?
No, I'm really sorry. I am literally down now to my last piece of tech. So
what, your phone?
I'm on the phone, yeah.
You're jumping in at a good time, though.
Hopefully they don't boot you out. So yeah, Loosh Factory, that looks good. I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
I missed you last one, so pleased to be here.
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
What is it? Every big event, whether it's the Hindenburg or the Titanic or Concorde or even with 9/11, every time there's a big structural event, it always seems to somehow get taken away from us in some very dramatic, traumatizing way.
Some sort of psyop, maybe. And funny you should say that, because what is our show next week, Andy PG?
Psyops.
Psyops.
Speciality.
And we're not just going to be talking about psyops like 9/11 and Hindenburg. I'm going to be talking about a whole different level of psyop that's been going on for 70 years.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
What's that, producer? Yeah. How would you take a picture? Yeah, how would you know? How did they get that picture perfectly staged? How would you know the explosion was about to happen?
In those times to set up those cameras.
To set up the cameras. Yeah, absolutely good shout, producer. Back then, how long did it take to set up a single shot in a camera? It wasn't it was not point and click.
Perfectly.
Yeah, you used to have to get the
you had to load the powder. You had to load the powder into the camera.
Yeah.
5 minutes. Is that from the comment section?
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent observations.
Yeah, very good point. Thank you, producer.
Early photography was difficult, was very difficult and very unreliable because the camera itself made a bunch of movement. Anyway, yeah, good observation. So I think NASA is a loosh factory. Like I talk about loosh, and loosh is our energy. Whenever we get energetically wrapped up in something, whenever we get pulled in, taken into these visually, there we go. This is our Hindenburg. This is NASA's Hindenburg right here. This is what they deal in.
And loosh, for anyone that's wondering, is what inner guardians refer to as essence. I
feel like
our harvestable energy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the way to put it. It's our emotional energy, and it gets through our lives. Our emotional energy gets poured into space. Think of all the time you think as a kid, you pour your energy into space. You're thinking about space, just the idea of you're in learning. There's a lot of directed, targeted energy towards space. And then, you really get, I remember, we watched all the launches. We would have space launches, rocket launches and stuff. We would actually go to an assembly in school and watch these things together. And there would be assemblies where we'd watch them and the things would blow up, and it would be absolutely
a ritual,
traumatizing. It would be
a loosh harvesting ceremony.
It seemed like a shared loosh harvesting ceremony that we were all just ready to watch. So what I found, that right there. So that was the Challenger. That was the Challenger shuttle. That was 1986. And that exploded shortly after launch. And so something that's really interesting about the Challenger shuttle crew, and
Here we go.
I think this is real. I think this is interesting to point out that this exists as part of the narrative. So I'll take a look at all these faces and then scroll to the next slide. So I think it's really important that there seems to be a person who is still alive and still working within similar fields that has just absolutely uncanny resemblances.
That is uncanny.
Yes, human vibration. Yes.
Each and every one of those is an absolute uncanny resemblance.
Yes, it is.
Every single metric.
Some of them even have the same names, I think. Some of them have similar or the same names, I believe.
Correct.
Is that right? Am I calling you human vibration?
Yeah,
Sorry.
you can call me Jay or human vibration. I like both.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, they've all got the same second name, the same surname.
Mm-hmm. Very similar names.
I know, so, yeah, some of them are identical.
Some of them even got the same mannerisms and the same facial expressions. It's like, yeah. Well.
Yes, and I've seen this for a long time. Even before many years ago, I think that I kind of stumbled on something like this because I've always been curious about the space. I've always been curious about NASA. I've always believed that what NASA is putting out is not quite on the up and up. Even though they have all that helium, somehow they're still not quite on the up and up.
They're doing something with it.
They're doing something. And in 2003, I remember this one too. I was still in school. This was Columbia. It broke up when it was returning to Earth. The nose just completely blew up, and everyone died. There were 7 people. So 7 people died on the other one. And if you scroll down, these are the 7 that died on this one. And
wait a minute, is that a separate 7 people?
Yeah, this was many years later. This was a.
Is it just me, or does this group of people look uncannily?
I know.
Do they uncannily resemble the last group of people?
You got the one black guy. You've got the one ethnic, kind of semi-ethnic woman with dark hair. You've got the ones like.
Even the white guy at the top with the elongated head looks the same. The black guy his face is the same. He has the same facial features. He's got the same hairline.
Even the hairline. Yeah. I went for the low-hanging fruit. I should have gone for the hairline first. I went for the low-hanging fruit. But racially, they have created, it's templates. Like
it's the full spectrum.
Same ones. They've got everyone. It's every flavor.
The United Colors of illusionary technology.
It's true. And that goes into, so it's talking about templates. So just this idea, now that we've kind of established that we're starting to see this in more recent spacecraft. Let's dial the time back just a little bit. So templates, which is my favorite thing to say, that's definitely a human vibration thing to say. So this is the first man in space. Go to the next slide. This is Yuri Gagarin. This was 1960. This is before the United States. This is 9 years. 9 years before, almost 9 years. It was 8 years and some change before Neil Armstrong would take his first step in space. And the interesting thing about Yuri Gagarin and Neil Armstrong, if you go to the next slide, is they look identical.
Stop it. Wow. Do you know what? For anyone that didn't see you on the last show.
Go to the next slide. I've got them side by side.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God.
Here we go.
Right. Okay. So for anyone that didn't see your last show.
Okay. Even if you're not convinced, go to the next slide. This is like a
What was the name of the technology you brought up on the last show that creates the faces out of an algorithm?
GAN,
what was it called?
GAN, Generative Adversarial Networks.
GAN, GAN.
GAN. And it's purported to have been around a few years. It's been around for a long time. It's been around for as long as we understand. In my opinion, and Human Vibration's opinion, GAN technology is basically what creates our entire understanding of history. And so I don't think that it's been around a long time.
Wow.
I think it is. I think GAN technology in some ways.
Can we do a history show with Human Vibration further down
Human
the line?
Vibration Part 3 is already in the mix.
Yeah.
If you want to take down history as you know it, sure.
Yeah, let's do a whole show on that for sure.
Yeah, we'll do a fake history show.
Yeah.
It's got to be on the cards.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right, transition. I think transition. This is one of the images. What does it look? It's purple. It's purple. This is one of the first images from the moon. This is Neil Armstrong. So Neil
Very
Armstrong
purple.
/ Yuri Gagarin. They look the same. They were nine years apart, but they seems to be the same person. Templates, human vibrations on templates. What else do? I do purple. So purple is, in my opinion, you can scroll purple. I'm going to do like a quick thing of what I did last time. I don't want to have to re-explain it to everyone because I talk about it to death on my everything else that I do. But purple, from what I understand, purple is the color of illusion. Purple is an illusion because it doesn't exist on our 2D visible light spectrum, the straight line visible light spectrum from red to violet. And violet is a shade of dark blue. Violet is not at all purple. Violet is actually deep blue, like ocean blue. Talk about aeronautics. Violet is the color of the deepest blue of the ocean before it disappears into nothingness. So if when you take hyper red and deep violet and you wrap it around in 3D space, you create this energetic field called purple. And it doesn't exist unless there's this bending of light. And when you talk about like bending the truth, and truth is light is truth, light is information.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Bend the truth.
The light bearer.
Tell a lie. And so this, if you go to the next slide, basically purples and the line of purples, and you can scroll.
Purple rain.
Purple rain.
I can't
You can
see.
scroll. You can scroll a couple of them.
Yeah, so this is your thing. To me, this is like human vibration 101. The line of purple is how I came to your work on Twitter.
It's everywhere. And purples
it's
don't
everywhere.
exist. Purples don't exist without bending of light. Yet somehow purples are everywhere in the universe, according to NASA. Somehow this light that doesn't exist. And look at this one. This is like one of the most important images. This is supposed to be like the picture of us, of everything. This is one of called the eye, and basically represents our solar system and everything that's containing us and surrounding us. And it looks so magnificent. But if you notice that the center of it is magenta, and magenta is
lies. Magenta is lies.
Yeah, then magenta's lies. Magenta's illusion. Purple is magic and illusion, but magenta is the center, and it is the most. It is the center and most of the magic illusion. So,
wow,
magenta, magic enter.
Oh, what'd you say? Sorry,
David Cameron, I noticed, used to put his purple tie on every time he wanted to come out and had to give a public speech so he could bomb Syria without permission of Parliament.
Well,
and he would always wear his purple power tie.
I've got some notes on war. That could be another podcast, another episode.
But we'll put that. We'll put that one down for human vibration 4.
Yeah. Noted.
Yeah. So purple's very important. When you say purple rain, that also not rain as in RAIN. The other rain. It actually refers to the reign of the royals. And what is the color of royal families? It's purple.
Purple.
Oh wow, purple rain.
Yeah, purple rain. Purple rain.
It was. I like puns. I like puns a lot. I do a lot of puns.
We do too.
I like a lot of puns.
Me too. I didn't realise there were so many at our expense though.
Oh no.
Parasite humour.
Parasite humor.
So human vibration. Correct me if I'm wrong with this. You showed us this slide last time. This is SpaceX footage, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember you saying. A lot of purple again, guys.
I really do like when these things come back around because I wasn't thinking of that. But this is SpaceX. But this happened. Yeah. Anyway, this is SpaceX, and they are, they of course the whole in-flight has to be purple. Their navigation system, even the seat, even the what they're wearing, it seems like their wearables have to be purple. Purple seems like a really inefficient way to build stuff if you're having to like build in this artificial purple light. Anyway, and the next one is our space station. This is our rotating space station, and somehow the blackness of space when photographed becomes purple, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Photographed by NASA, of course.
Of course. And so this is another one photographed by NASA. And NASA's the next one, NASA's Juno spacecraft captured. So this is called a sprite, and it's
Whoa.
lightning like electricity. And this was supposed to be in Jupiter. In Jupiter's, so we're kind of getting far. This is the farthest we've gone. That we're now in Jupiter. We're kind of leaving the moon.
Really?
This was supposedly in Jupiter. And it's got magenta. If you really look in, you can kind of see some magenta colors, and it's very purple. And
Almost looks like it's been created in Photoshop.
it almost
Especially here.
yeah.
It almost looks like a classic like lightning flash effect put onto a deep violet background.
Yep, and they just like redid it. And
It's the COVID graph, just vertically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the Grow COVID 1984 graph.
That's funny. And then again, purples. We're back to this image. This was, that's when the chat, it blew up.
1986, 3 years old.
And then here's
God.
atomic, talk about nuclear technology. We had a little bit of Disney nuclear technology at the
Oh yeah, just on the note of nuclear, how you spell it. If you switch round the U, the N and the U, you have unclear.
Unclear. Very interesting. Unclear technology.
Unclear
energy. Unclear weapons.
That's it.
Yeah, interesting. It's all about the wordplay. We always come back to that.
If they call it spelling for a reason. Yeah.
Yep, you cast spells.
Yeah.
Oh, TBD. I forgot to give a very clever subheadline to that, but I think blue marble speaks for itself. So I'm glad I kept it as TBD. So the blue marble, this was basically, we talked about the first photograph from space, and that was launched from White Sands, New Mexico, and they did a rocket and it took a little thing of space, which White Sands is very interesting. Real quick, White Sands is very interesting because white sand is illusion. What is a mirror made of sand? White sands is kind of like a little, hey.
Okay.
So just a little aside. Whenever I see, whenever white sands or sands is emphasized in anything related to NASA, it makes me think that they're telling us.
At the end of the day, if half of what we believe about the way dark occultists work, then when we know that words, symbols, shapes, they're very important to them. So when you see little clues like that and they stick out to you, and then something subconsciously goes ding, 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 probably better pay attention to that, in my opinion. That's how I've come to a lot of my conclusions. I always trust my gut instincts and what my little voice inside tells me about something. And more often than not, I'm always glad that I did.
Always trust your gut. That's an excellent, excellent, excellent lesson. And yeah, one of my ding ding dings is with white sands. And whenever I see that, especially when it's official stuff, I know that they're kind of like hinting it's a mirror projection. So the blue marble, that this was captured. They say this was a photograph. They tell us most of the stuff, I would say 99.999% of what NASA shows us, like they're actually now telling us it's these compilations. They're mini photographs.
Composite images is what they actually call them. Yeah, composite images, which actually means like a conglomerate of loads of different images. It doesn't say at any stage that they're original photographic images. They don't have to say that. Composite images. Composite images of what? What is it composed of?
Just go into that, Lance. What do you mean?
Well, what a composite image? If you looked at the dictionary definition of what a composite image is, it just means an image that is composed of other things.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that means. So in the term, there is not a single piece of evidence to suggest that there is a single original photograph in it. It just says this is a composite image. We made this image from other things. We composted it.
Mm-hmm.
We swabbed it out of the fucking ether,
out of space.
We just got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's the earth. I mean, let's just look at this. Where's everything in the background? Where's the? It just looks like it's cut and pasted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
literally.
Well, it's a composite image. What would you expect?
They said this one was real. I did research, and they actually and they're very clear. Even to this day, they're clear about things being composited. They're like, hey, we got to do a lot of stuff. We got to send it back. We got to send it up there. We do it over here. It's all digital now. We have algorithms.
Yeah, they
hide behind technology now. However, for this particular image, and this was in 1972. They said this is a photograph, and that the guy he had a shake, and he was so nervous. They even have a story about it. It's ridiculous because it's like.
Has anyone seen this photograph from 1972? It looks rubbish. A 1972 photograph is grainy. It's faded. It's like look at this. This is a digital image. 1972.
Yeah, this is definitely. So go to the next. So the next slide is is the blue marble, the original photo hyper quotes, and then the other two are composites. They look exactly the same. I mean, they're changed, but they're like, well, now we're doing composites. Now we're not taking.
I reckon we should call them compost images.
Yes,
Like a rotting pile of compost.
So close to the truth.
So this is not a real image. This is a compost image. We just composted it.
Exactly right. And
Pot
so
puree.
if we go to the next one, we can kind of look how these things are composted. So you have a flat map. Why do we look at maps flat in school? We look at the map on the globe, and we look at the map we spin it around on the globe, and we also have them all laid down. We see all sorts of maps when we're growing up, and they always correlate. They really do, because even when the map is laid out like this, it's still supposed to correlate exactly to how it is fixed on the globe. But what I think is really interesting is how we see the flat map, and then also how we see the globe map. It's a one-to-one representation. I mean, obviously it is, but it's a one-to-one representation of how graphics are created in general, like how all of this stuff is created.
3D mapping.
It's teaching us that this is how it works. It's teaching us that everything in 3D space is flat at one point until it gets mapped based on the physics that it's fed, based on the logic that it's fed. And in this case, the only reason that it's mapping to a sphere is because that flat map is being fed a sphere. That's the only reason. That flat map with those coordinates and those constituents, and that could be a kangaroo. You could wrap that around anything. You could wrap that around a truck, but we're wrapping it around a ball, and that's what we're seeing. It's really interesting because the mapping is everything, really. I think the mapping is. I don't necessarily even have the best handle on it, but I think. Here's the next. So this kind of gets a bit deeper into it. This doesn't necessarily clarify anything. You actually go to the next one; it kind of gets a little bit better. But it's very complex. But this is how our world works in 3D space. In the checkerboard pattern, which was visible on the last one, the checkerboard pattern is really representative of whatever the design is. The checkerboard pattern is where the design is placed.
It's the base layer.
It's the
base layer reality,
always.
base layer consciousness.
If you are a designer, you're a designer in Photoshop, every single project you open up, if you're working in transparency, your base layer is a checkerboard. There's no way around it unless you like hide it by doing like a manual mode and saying you're working in print or something.
Yeah, right. I know that. That's very true.
So that again is just one of those little things. Just one of those little things where it's like, this is the way the world works. And we're going to tell you. And we're going to tell you this is how it works.
Archetypal ideas is what we're talking about, basically.
Exactly. And foundational archetypal ideas. Yeah.
Shadow play. Yes.
This is really interesting.
It is super interesting.
Really interesting.
Yeah, this is so good because I know what when we put out the topic for this week's show, like what is space, and then we announced human vibration was coming back. In comments of stuff,
people were digging it.
People were instantly digging it, but people were unsure about what it's going to be. What is this about? Like some of our viewers that were literal 3D spaces was like, I can't watch this episode. You're going to be going all flat Earth. I was like, I don't think we are. I've already turned down someone from Flat Earth Society because I don't want to be painted with that brush.
No.
No, I don't want to. We're not flat earthers. We're just here to ask questions about what is presented to us.
But we'd have God Vag on in a clean.
Yeah. So I'm glad that we're talking about these subjects. So far, we've had Disney. We've had like the 3D mapping, the whole graphic. Yeah, we've ticked some good boxes so far, and now we're coming full circle because your last presentation was shadow play.
And I think that's I love it when things wrap around. I really do, because all of
Ouroboros.
The Ouroboros, and what we're experiencing, what I was showing you with the visualizations of the composite images that we see, those require sophisticated light. Part of mapping is this lighting and shadow play. That's one step of rendering things in 3D space is the projection of light. And this goes back to one of the oldest concepts of everything that we do experience. Deception is their only tool. And how do you deceive? The easiest and only if necessary, the only needed way to deceive someone is to trick what light enters, trick the way that the light enters their eye, to manipulate the light that enters their eye. And that's why I think the purples is so interesting and so significant, because it represents a manipulated visible light spectrum. Purple represents a bended, manipulated, unnaturally wrapped rainbow.
So that statement that you just said, that right there, human vibration, I would say that is occult knowledge. Okay, so the occult knowledge of the colors, the color spectrum.
Oh no, I'm wearing my sun and moon shirt. I'm an occultist. I'm a legit occultist. Shit.
But but we're occultists. We're just light occultists.
Maybe I am. I don't
That's
know.
all we are.
Yeah, I think so.
But the statement of what you just said, that means that any occultist who's putting out an image which is on the spectrum of purple is doing, what we know they like to do is put it out in plain sight in their way, in their mindset, telling us what they're doing. It's up
like
to
a signal,
us to
like
know.
33. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, it's up to us whether we know
for that
not.
false flag event to have purple in the background and the guys to be wearing. But if that's a choice, is it a signal? Is it a way of invoking the illusion? Is it?
Great question.
It's a way of them telling us. It's the way of them signaling to other occultists that know this knowledge that it's lies.
Well, then we'd be playing into the mockery idea again.
Yeah, but it's one and the same, isn't it? It's signaling to other occultists and at the same time mocking the people, the uninitiated.
Multiple birds are always killed with one stone with these guys.
Yeah.
There's never any one reason for any action.
Multiple layers, isn't it, all the time with these things? Usually it's happening on different levels. Purple, I remember from my sales days, way before I was even doing activism, was you wouldn't wear a purple tie to an interview because then you're showing dominance over the interviewee who you're supposed to be under. So a psychological trick which really works is you should wear blue to an interview, they say, or otherwise something else that shows that you can take orders, because that's what people see and why they make us wear blue a lot. If you wear a purple tie, I wore a purple tie once to an interview on a Friday, and I couldn't realize why this guy was so intimidated and I didn't get the job. And I apparently was probably intimidated by my flash purple tie.
Wow.
It's a power, and a dominance angle as well, psychologically, I believe, which is why they use it.
It's the color of wizards.
The Joker's purple. Joker.
The color of magic.
Right. Yeah, and it can be used obviously consciously. And on the other side, the hippies will use the purple amethyst for the positive reasons and stuff like that. But obviously, when you're using it consciously negatively, it's a power play, I think, as well as the other spectrum.
So, if we're talking about light and the color and the spectrum of light, and we're talking about like the light bringer, can we say that Lucifer is the color of purple is the color of Lucifer?
No, because Lucifer is the light bringer, which can be positive. It's the way that there's dark Luciferians, we're light Luciferians. So no, I wouldn't say purple is the color of Lucifer.
But I mean the symbol that Human Vibration showed on the last slide, which is like it's actually sort of shown here in Plato's cave. It's where the point goes out from, and then there's the eye, and it's the symbol, the seal of Lucifer. That symbol, does that represent?
So glad you guys brought this up. Of course.
Yeah. Does that
presentation? Yes. If you go to the next slides. Okay.
Oh right. Okay. Sorry.
Of course. Okay.
Yes. That one. That symbol. Whoop, whoop.
It wouldn't be a human vibration presentation without the sigil of Lucifer. This is all shadow play. Everything that we experience, all of it. It's not just space, but everything that I talk about, it all goes back to shadow play. Whoever is supplying the light, they are really in charge of the shadows too. You have to be responsible for the shadows when you're shining light. To light a candle is to cast a shadow. And this is, if you look up the physics of light, you're going to see this. This is one of the earliest replications of what a candle flame represents. And you'll notice that it is named, the light source is named BAL. Ball.
Ball.
BAL.
Wait, what the fuck?
I didn't like these.
Oh yeah.
Wait,
word nerd.
You just rabbit hole.
You need to refer to the first podcast.
Yeah,
go deep in on this.
Do rewinds to the first one.
I was bloody asleep. I can't believe I missed that. I passed out at my desk during your first one, Human Vibration. I literally fell asleep on my laptop. I was so drained that week. Wait, I'm really sorry to cut you off. Jay, are you saying that like Lucifer? So he's the light bringer, so he's controlling the light, and therefore the perception of range and perspective on our reality, because that's what Lucifer is, the light bringer. He's bringing.
We may have a misinterpretation of what or who Lucifer is, but whoever's bringing the light is Lucifer, light bringer.
The light bringer, yeah.
And if that light is false, it's not good. I believe that we humans, we have inner light. We are light beings, and we can shine I think that we have enough light to outshine any deception that's happening.
Yeah, because just because someone's bringing the light doesn't mean it's positive. It can be a false light.
Could be a false
light.
A false light casts a false shadow.
People are putting out their own lights at the moment. Willingly.
Natural light. Yeah.
Because I cut you off, for someone like me then who might be triggered by the term Lucifer, especially if I've missed the first your first podcast with us, what is it meaning for you then? Because I've had other people come to me before when I've spoken out on this and said about the definition of Lucifer being different to Satan and Satanism and stuff like that. It depends on the person's intent.
It is different. I think it's different.
I think that I'm so glad you asked, and I'm so glad you asked that, because actually for this exploration, and we're going to go through a couple of slides, just for this exploration, I want all of us to decouple ourselves from our idea of Lucifer as like devil Lucifer. I'm not saying we have to leave that forever, but I just want to look at the shape. I want to take away all preconceived notions, and I just want to look at shapes and see, are these similar? And is there something going on here? And what does that mean? And I think that we may come back to this idea of light being Luke, being candle, I think we might come back to this first one that we started with. But what I'm seeing right here on this very first slide, this BAL, I think this is going to translate into the next few. And I think that is connected, but I don't want us to be totally hung up on like this idea of the
keep
devil.
Your mind fluid. Don't be solid with your thoughts.
I just want to show that there's these weird shape connections and everything. I think this is all more about us. It's all more about us and how we interpret things than anything else outside of us. About big bad scary guy, I think it's about the light that's coming in and how we allow light into us. Okay, so this slide right here is, if you go to the next one, this just shows how this image doesn't just exist here in our realm. This is also a space image too. This is a space shape. That shape that you saw above, that's the same angular shape of how the sun operates, shining its light onto the earth, casting its shadow onto the moon. The darkest part of a shadow is called the umbra. The umbra is the most significant, darkest subsection of a shadow. The penumbra is kind of like that more hazy outer edge of shadows. Penumbra can be a whole range of transparencies, but the umbra is typically where there's no light. It's completely lost by whatever shadow. It's like the darkest part of a shadow, pitch black. So the next slide. So again, this exists in space. This is how space light works, just like it works on Earth. And it also relates to how our two eyes work. Not only is this how light works in general, light. If you take the mechanics of our eyeballs, which shouldn't necessarily I guess obviously it makes sense that they operate like light does, but it's very strange how the mechanics of light entering our eyes is exactly the same as the type of shape that represents shadows and shadow play. Is how our two eyes system take in light from in our peripheral vision, and how we interpret light and vision basically represents, again, this shape. And if you go to the next one, we're kind of getting into what this shape is.
That's how we actually perceive reality.
Yeah.
That's how light enters our eyes and goes to the back of the cortex and then is processed in the brain. And that's how we observe it.
They say like our brain flips.
Yeah, because it has the mirror effect. Mm-hmm. So it's cast upside down on the back of the eye, and then the brain has to flip it.
Which is wild. Wild. Again, mirror, white sands. Again, I think this all really does connect. And that's why white sands is always one of those ding, ding, dings, because mirrors are such a big part of this whole situation. Okay, so we're into the Freemason symbol, and we're kind of peeking at the sigil of Lucifer. And Freemasonry is really big in Anyway, you guys know how big Freemasonry is. Okay, I don't even.
Yeah, it's big all over the world. There are lodges of Freemasonry in every continent, in every country.
Astronaut is supposedly a 33rd degree Mason. Supposedly, every single astronaut that's ever been to space. Neil Armstrong, it was a Buzz Aldrin famously does Masonic gestures and symbols and wears a Masonic pin and took a Masonic thing to space and is like a Masonic lodge. So if you want to go down a rabbit hole, I suggest you go down the rabbit hole of Masons in space. But we're not going to do that this time because we're looking at symbols. So,
Masons in space. That sounds like a great episode.
The Masonic flag, didn't they, as well?
Oh, they put a Masonic flag on the moon, or some sort of flag on, other than the United States.
I believe so, yeah. That's official history, I believe. You just have to dig a bit and it's there. Yeah. So
wrapping back to space, I don't want to get too locked. Pardon the pun, Lockheed Martin. So who?
Our old friends, Lockheed Martin.
Who are the major aerospace companies? Boeing, Airbus, which is, hey, Airbus, helium, Airbus. Okay.
Right.
Major aerospace companies, Boeing, Airbus, and Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is number 3. Lockheed Martin, if you guys remember from the last time, we talked a lot about that. They're major players in deception. They're major players in the CGI world. You can scroll down their logo. You can scroll down a couple. Their logo is the sigil of Lucifer. So here we're back to space. We're back to light bringers. The sigil of Lucifer here on the left. This is like the first time we're seeing it in its full expression. It's turned on its side, but just so you can kind of compare the logos.
I can't.
But yeah. So that's there's. Light is information. Light is knowledge. We're getting our information from our space agencies. Lockheed Martin is Lucifer. They're bringing us light. They're bringing us information. It's no, I don't think Lucifer is one thing. I think Lucifer is anyone that brings us light. This slide is from the last one, but I had it in relation to John Bonet. We're not going to even go into her because I could totally lose myself in that. But all that to say, at the time, Lockheed Martin has always been into 3D graphics technology. Enough said. 3D modeling, mapping. Enough said. Shadow play. Okay.
Welcome Magic to the stream.
We can't talk about space without talking about SpaceX. We can't talk, without Elon Musk. And so I want to end with my, at least in my presentation, with my favorite space guru, Elon Musk. And, I did do a whole slide where I was trying to line up his logo with the sigil of Lucifer, but I actually learned something more important in his logo. So we'll save that for the next slide. But one thing I love about Elon is that he famously said, you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. He said
I remember when he said it. And I was like, oh, really?
That's a gift. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It's so there's so much truth packed into that, and there's
so many questions about that car.
So many, yeah. And because the car absolutely was done in a studio. There's no way, based on known applied physics that we're all familiar with after all this time, that this shoot could have taken that this guy could just be chilling in that car in space orbiting the Earth. Like there's just no way. There's no way that could. So anyway, so for everyone to be like, that's so fake, and then Elon to even say, well, you can tell it's real because it looks so fake. I love it.
Yeah, that's mockery.
It's mockery. And what is interesting about the logo is the SpaceX logo perfectly lines up with the Falcon 9 trajectory. And we just saw the Falcon 9. There was just this tonight or something, or last night, there was views of Falcon 9 thrusters coming back, accidentally coming back into orbit. And it looked spectacular, like shooting stars, but it looked very CGI and kind of fake.
Can I just mention on logos and Elon Musk, if you look at the Tesla logo, the T for Tesla, which is on the front of the car, it's basically a ram's head.
I've seen that. I've noticed that.
Yeah. It's the horns, mate.
Yeah. And this
what
logo,
surprise.
This arching. Okay, and we see the arch. Where does it go? Where do these rockets go out? How can they go down if they go out? That never made sense to me. But it looks strikingly similar to the next slide with the Disney logo. And my GIF didn't work when I sent it over, but you guys all know the drill. It's the same. It's the same.
Oh, is this supposed to be a GIF?
It's I sent you a PDF, so there's no.
Yeah, we've all seen it at the start of the movie.
Yeah, we've all
It's
seen it.
exactly the same arc. Exactly the same arc.
It's the same. It's Disney magic. It's Disney magic. And in the next one, you'll see this is how they did it with the car. They basically filmed it in this hyper lit stage setting. This is Hollywood. This is how they do lots of stuff in Hollywood.
That's like it's basically a CGI chamber.
Basically, and they scan every single. They illuminate the car in multiple ways, and the technology kind of learns the illumination patterns, and then they scan it in all those different ways. And so basically, you can like put it anywhere, and you can light it, and it can look like it. But it's also very well lit. It's studio lit in space, and it's like the sun doesn't work like that. Like, anyway, it only works when you realize that this is how it's done. It's done in a studio. It's not happening in space. It's
also this company that's Zuma Press.
Yes. I'm
That's
so glad
the trauma imagery.
Yeah.
The company, the Lockheed Martin company that uses GAN.
Yeah. So the producers just pointed out that Zuma, spelt backwards, is Amuz, which was a Greek god of destruction.
And to amuse is like a jester. It keeps it's fascinating. It keeps our attention. It keeps our gaze. It amuses us.
The Amused Press.
The Amused Press. And here we go. This I ended on this last time. This is my last slide. Go to the next one. It's the Ouroboros. It's the snake eating its own tail. It all comes
also
back.
The symbol of infinity.
It's a symbol of infinity. It's that loop life. We got to get off this loop life. I think the only way to do that is to really recognize all the deceptions that are keeping us locked in. That's what I'm trying to do. That's my jam. I'm trying to get us off this loop. I think that we can. I think once we recognize that we're on it, I think that we have the opportunity to get off. But until then, we're stuck forever. So
in a never-ending cycle.
In an ever-ending cycle. And I think that infinity, it's the endless loop. I've got a whole thing on 8 and infinity and generational. 8th candle burns forever. All this. There's lots of really interesting things. Go ahead.
When you go to
welcome, Magic.
Sorry. Evening, everyone. Welcome. When you go to like Alcoholics Anonymous and things, the first thing you've got to do when you've got a problem is realize you've got a problem.
We've all got a problem with illusion, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's quite fundamental. Like you need to realize that there is a fundamental problem with reality. Right. So if that's bringing your presentation to a close, I reckon we need to open up the floor to our comment section.
Yeah, we need to
get some questions. Can you get some questions up?
Absolutely.
So big up everyone that's tuned in. Human Vibration for the last hour or so has just been talking about. We started off with Disney. We started off with Disney creating our reality. Then we went on to 3D mapping of whether space is flat or round. We've dealt with we've taken it right back. The color spectrum. We've taken it right back a full circle to the snake eating its own tail, to the Ouroboros, and talking about the illusional nature of what is presented to us as reality. So everyone in the comment section, if you have a question for Human Vibration, please let us know on anything she's talked about or anything from the last presentation that you didn't get to ask last time. What is everyone saying? Do it on that screen. That's a control screen, mate.
I just saw that there's comments. I forgot about that last time, and now I see them again.
Yeah. We haven't put any on the screen.
Here we go. Here's one from Rona Fictional. So,
this is a good bad question.
Hitler
put it on the screen, mate. Put it on the screen.
Walt Disney.
I think that's a fascinating question. Honestly.
It is a great question.
It appears so. They look so similar. I talk about templates all the time. It appears so. I will say that. I don't know, but they want us to think so. Is my answer, because they look exactly the same.
They do,
I don't think that's a mistake. I think that they want us to think that Hitler, and I think that you have someone coming on to talk about this, but there is a one-to-one connection up here. Like there's a definite flow of Nazism into Walt Disney, and this is a big part of this. This is a big part of the story.
Well, another side would be they want you to.
Hitler could be a brother or something.
Well, another
There's
side
definitely
is
something there.
they always want you thinking about Hitler. So you want something that's familiar. So if they put Walt Disney in front of you all the time, which is something familiar, you're never going to forget Hitler.
So true in our minds, especially if they make Walt Disney look just like Hitler. Exactly right. That's brilliant. Yeah. And you know, if you know human vibration stuff, I like to say these people don't exist. I have no idea if there's really a Walt Disney. You know, it could just be this character that they designed to look like the character named Hitler, because they know the character named Hitler is hyper successful.
The character named Hitler. I love that.
You know, I don't know, but I do believe that what we are witnessing is a form of theater throughout history. I think I'm getting more and more comfortable saying and really feeling in my bones, not just believing, but feeling in my bones, that a lot of our boogeymen are just characters,
Actors.
actor-based reality. That's all the world's a stage, and every man does an act in 7 stages. Yeah, basically saying that people play multiple parts, multiple roles throughout their life.
Yeah, I think it's plausible. Whether they're real, digitally created, rolled off some sort of clonal production line, everything's on the table. But there's definitely sort of archetypal characters that seem to like repeat themselves.
Yeah.
I've got another good question here from Concept Self. Have you noticed, this is to human vibration, have you noticed a speeding up of reality?
Me personally, reality seems to be concentrating and slowing down at the moment, and I'm doing that purposefully. I'm really taking. I did notice. So my answer is yes. I did notice that, especially through Corona last year in 2020. I noticed that time was becoming hyper. I was losing time.
I've noticed that.
Yeah,
massively.
I was losing time. Time was slipping away from me, and not in a way that felt different. And I've never been a super meditative person. Like I've been a big thinker my whole life, but I wouldn't say that I've been like super meditative. And something that I started in 2021 was living a more purposeful life in line with what I believe my tenets of reality to be, and like really aligning who I am and who I say I am and what I want and what I say I want, and like my head and my heart, aligning all those things. That's been a big part of it. But also in that, just being way more mindful in every moment, not always losing myself into technology, not always like listening to something all the time and doing something and also doing another. Really kind of like in the movie Inception, where you have to check in with your reality. I noticed myself when I started really checking in with my here and now, and with myself in the here and now, and my surroundings in the here and now, and people around me, and if there's another consciousness around me, when I really like kind of locked in and even made uncomfortable eye contact with someone around me, I noticed that I could slow that time down for sure. I don't feel like time is away from me anymore.
Nice. Interesting concept.
What an answer.
Yeah, I hope I hit the spot. Have we got any more questions, producer?
So we've got a woke realist is asking, has she seen the vag before? So are you familiar with God vag?
God, that was a really terrible way to word it. There's a creator that we talk about he's actually called Godj Vlamast. He's Flemish. He speaks English and he's great, but we call him God vag because he's a bit of a god. And he presents this stuff about Walt Disney that I was talking about earlier, and how he believes that our realm that we live in is actually a crater on a much grander planet.
I've heard moon crater too.
Yeah, a moon crater. Yeah, we believe, or as far as I know, he was the guy that come up with this theory. I know a lot of other people are talking about it, that when we look at the moon, what the moon is actually a reflection of a much greater Earth, and we live in one of the small craters. And he's actually identified the crater. Mm-hmm. He's got the 3D mapping up, and he's sort of shown that what people call the flat Earth map. Mm-hmm. Okay, what he called the flat Earth map is basically our realm. And so when rockets go out to the side, they're actually leaving the crater and landing on the greater Earth. Are you familiar with this?
I'm familiar.
This theory?
Yeah, I'm familiar with the theory. I think it's fascinating because I think that they are actually able to show, based on the reflection, that it is how we see the Earth, and it also kind of explains how the moon is visible to us in certain phases, and how we see the moon. But the moon's just like this tiny. I'm not doing a great job at the moment reiterating what I believe about it, but I have looked into it, and it is compelling, and it is worth, I think, looking into. And I don't know where we are. I don't know where we are.
Okay. Next question. Human vibration. What is your take on the virus and the state of play the world is in at the moment? Where do you think we may be heading? And any ideas for resistance, ways to keep positive at this time? Thank you, Sam Carno.
Excellent question, Sam. And I think the virus, good news, the virus that they're truly scared about is awareness. I think that awareness is spreading faster than any contagion. And I think that the world is waking up in a way that I think that is the coronavirus. To take it to brass tacks, I think the corona means crown, means head, means illumination, means ring of light. The crown of our head is illuminated with light. I believe that we are light beings and we are being illuminated, and that is the coronavirus that's happening. That's been stated to happen. And I don't think that COVID-19, maybe there is a coronavirus 19, because coronavirus is the common cold. That is what the common cold is. And so I'm not saying that there is not a common cold. I'm not saying that people aren't getting sick. I'm not saying that there's not the flu, but I do not believe, based on my personal observation and based on what I've been told and what I've been told is going around, I simply do not believe that there is a deadly global contagion taking down our immune systems all over the world, and that bodies are lined in the streets, and that morgues are lined up with bodies, and that crematories are burning bodies around the clock, and that people are dying in the streets, and everything that we've been taught and told about the virus, everything that we've been taught and told about the vaccine. I think it's all shadow play. I think that it's misinformation, misrepresentation of how our bodies work, how our immune systems even work, what we really need to be healthy and healthful and well systems. And I mean, fear and anxiety, that deplatforms the immune system faster than anything else, really. And I think
deplatforms the immune system.
Yeah, great.
I love that.
Great way of putting it.
Awesome.
And I think that we can be worrying ourselves into sickness, into real physical illness. This whole situation.
Self-sabotage, self-slaughter, as Inner Guardians puts it.
Self-slaughter. That's what it is. And, I don't even think it's hard not to fall in. It's hard not to fall into it, to the fear. So it's not like people want to be doing this. But you get in, I have noticed that people don't want to give up their masks. People don't want to give up. Now that things are opening up, the people that were always in it, they don't want to live without it now. It's like a badge of honor. It's a Stockholm syndrome of sorts.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
So I think that and that points to...
It's virtual signaling.
It's a virtue signaling 100%, because there's a lot being communicated about the way that you see the world. And and I think that anybody that questions the virus, I think that anybody that questions the virus or doesn't want to wear a mask is painted as an inconsiderate imbecile, just a dum-dum, like the reason you don't want to wear a mask is because you don't care about anybody and you're an idiot. And it's simply not true. It's simply not the truth, but it is what people think. It is what people. It is the way that the world sees it. And
that's how the narrative's been painted.
I can bring that right back to some of my own family members, absolutely, who believe that about me and the way I am perceiving what's going on at the moment. They say I'm just crazy for just carrying on normally.
Okay, next question, Wolfie. What is Human Vibration's opinions on gun laws in the US and the government taking them away? Sorry, politics.
I don't know if I'm the best person to ask about this, because I have a personal fear about handling firearms. They scare me. They scare me personally. So I have like a personal fear about guns.
Removing that, do you think there might be other agendas at play as to why they are trying to remove them?
And I think that I have an unexplained personal emotional reactions to guns for a reason, because they are a personal, emotional, reactionary issue.
Yeah.
And I think that my response, even though I can't really explain it, it's deeply seated. Guns are scary to me for some reason. And I think that they make just like our media and Disney shapes the way we think about things. Our whole idea of guns and what protecting ourselves means and what guns can do and what guns are and how is fed to us by gun violence through the news and also through Hollywood magic. And, and I will be the first to say that I believe my interpretation and understanding of guns is entirely incorrect. And guns are actually very safe. And firearms, when properly owned and operated, A firearm is not is no more a hazard to have around your house than a knife in the kitchen cabinet, than a bottle of bleach underneath your sink. You know, it's
or a car in the garage.
Or a car in the garage. Exactly right.
Or a horse out back that could kick you.
Horse out back there, they'll stomp you.
Which is arguably more dangerous and less predictable.
Bears in the house, you know, kids die all the time. But I think a properly contained, maintained firearm, honestly, even though I have some internal whatevers about it, I think that it's safe. And I think that any dialogue about gun ownership being unsafe is incorrect, is an incorrect way to view it. That to say, bad things do happen. Also, I believe as a human vibration that a lot of the bad things that we're told don't happen. And so it's like, how bad is this situation really? If we could really see how dangerous gun ownership is, which I probably think it's not that dangerous, honestly, compared to vehicular deaths, compared to accidental poisonings, toxicity within the household, all sorts of things. I think that we would realize that actual true gun death or gun death, the whole category, is maybe not as big as they tell us. Or
absolutely, yeah, no, I would agree.
I saw a meme today like, why is gun violence called gun violence? Why isn't it just called murder?
Oh, interesting.
It's not like it also said we don't call rape penis brutality.
They have to categorize it under the gun. Like, it's so important. It's so important.
It's very loaded. There's another pun. Right. Go on,
there's something to be said about people's first reaction to seeing a gun. If you've never seen a gun before and you see it, your first reaction is usually a reaction of fear.
Saying that, Maddox, I can remember the first time I went to the States snowboarding when I was about 9 years old, and I remember when we got off the plane and I saw the police officers in the airport when they had pistols just on their sides, and I'd never seen a gun before, and I was fascinated with them, but equally, like, you know, wary as a little child because I've seen, you know, movies and stuff. So yeah, you're right. If you're not used to it, it's very scary. Can be.
All right, we're getting shouted at because we're not addressing the questions apparently. So next question on the screen: do we think Project Bluebeam is possible soon? What are your thoughts on holoportation technology? Whoa, that's a great question from Gillian.
This is for human vibration.
Yeah, this is a question for you.
Holoportation. Holoportation is, I'm assuming, teleportation through light, like through transporting our bodies through like holographic based. I don't know about holoportation, but I think Project Bluebeam is connected to holography, laser-based advanced holography. I might be getting the terminology. She might have meant that. But laser-based advanced holography is basically Project Bluebeam, where we are using diodes of red, green, and blue to project anything in 3D space in a depth and a light that makes it indecipherable from reality, unless you were to go take your hand and swipe through and see that it was just light. And they use holography. Advanced laser-based holography is able to use both light diodes and also depth, and like project in 3D depth to basically create to create a person, to make it look like a person is standing in the room. This exists. This technology, I believe, currently exists.
We saw the Pope disappear, didn't we?
Yeah.
We saw the Pope disappear in 2020.
He was a holographic projection. We've seen in those Chinese shopping centers, the whale like bursting out of the floor and crashing in the waves, literally just on the floor of a shopping center. It's incredible.
I think there's like a hologram Michael Jackson on tour, and there was a holographic Tupac at Coachella in 2012. And I was actually there for holographic Tupac, and he looked I mean, it looked like a ghost. It looked very ghostly, and you could tell that it was obviously a hologram. But what I believe, the truth is that technology exists in a perfected state, but they show us these very rudimentary versions.
A kind of drip feed thing to introduce you to it.
I think so.
Right, next question from Unruly Kings. Question for human vibration. What are your views on gravity? Because it can be easily disproved with the explanation of buoyancy and density. That fact alone disproves the globe. No gravity, no ball Earth.
There it is. Yep, I'm with you, 100%. Like I said, my observational knowledge, from what I'm able to understand with my own ability to test things in my day-to-day life and use my own set of skills, sight, whatever. Buoyancy and density is so much more of an explanation for how things work in this realm than gravity, which is invisible and unexplainable and still theoretical. Buoyancy and density aren't. they're not theoretical. They're not unexplainable. They're not immeasurable.
They're easily demonstrable.
Yes. It's ridiculous that we're still allowing gravity to be part of our discussion. We should have.
If you ask a physicist to explain how gravity works, they can't.
They can't.
No,
and
they
they
can't.
like that somehow.
Yeah, they do.
Like
Yeah.
that. They're like, oh, the fact that
It's
you're
like
going to ask.
an ineffable, unexplainable,
Yeah, they
thing.
switch
on
it.
you.
Well, they switch it on you. They switch it on you that
They're
you're.
like,
you're
this person thinks it can be explained. You know, yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's something there. There's definitely something there.
Okay.
Or there isn't something.
Or there isn't. No,
Or there isn't
it's a
something
question. I
there.
think that was a beautiful question because
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Guys, if anybody's got any more questions for human vibration, we have the pleasure of a company for roughly 10 minutes more, and then we're going to be introducing our good new friend, Mr. Roma Beats over there in the corner. He's got some tunes ready for
So we've got
selection.
one here from
Yes.
Rat Riot. Okay, for human vibration. Any thoughts on the inscription of von Braun's tombstone?
yes, I can't remember the exact inscription, but it basically talked about the dome, the firmament above.
The firmament.
And the firmament is biblical. It's in the Bible. It was a biblical, from what I remember, it was a biblical inscription, and it was one of the famous ones that's pointed to in a lot of flat Earth rhetoric. I'm not really I'm not that big on the literal Bible. So for me, it pointing to literal Bible as kind of goes back around. I think an inscription. If Werner Braun is even real, which I'm not quite sure he's a true character. He could be a character in this whole thing because he does kind of he's a linchpin in many of these stories, Werner Braun specifically, and probably some stuff that you guys are about to talk about. He's a very pivotal character in this whole thing. And so I think that maybe if he's not a true, I think that maybe the inscription on his tombstone could be a very easy way for all of us from that point on to point back to and go, oh, Werner Braun's tombstone says the dome, firmament, muddy the waters. An easy way to muddy the waters.
Wow.
I've never seen his tombstone either. I don't even know if that's what it really says.
No. We only know what we've been told by the same people that told us everything else. So, yeah, great answer. Next question from Owen Keeling, a regular viewer. Big up, Owen. Human vibration. You were talking about Lucifer / Satan and the shadow earlier on. Do you have any thought on the origin of the world? Untitled text from the Nag Hammadi text, specifically. It describes the immeasurable light of truth. Sophia. Out of Pistis, and in its dark shadow, the watery abyss, which Ouroboros arose from. Wow,
well,
I'm not even familiar with that.
The idea of Sophia out of Pistis and Ouroboros rising from the abyss, from the water, the abyss, I got those names totally wrong, but that is actually a representation of the yin-yang symbol. Of the swirling, of the immeasurable light, the one on the inside with the immeasurable light of truth, and then the same equally illuminatory, but in the opposite way of darkness. And then one trying to get out of the abyss is a tiny little node of lightness in the dark, and the one trying to get out of the light back into the abyss is the tiny little darkness in the light. And so that parable, that entire I'm not going to call it a parable, but the entire story of that is, I think, a metaphor, a metaphor for the yin yang symbol of the swirling division throughout life, which is what I think. I don't know if it's the origin of the earth, but I think it powers our universe. So it is everything. I think this swirling division is what powers our experience, and that's why we have to be divided all the time. Anyway.
Awesome. We got another question here from Lee Gould. Okay, human vibration. How can our atmosphere exist in the infinite vacuum of space?
It can't. It really can't with how physics. But I think they feed us false math. I think they give us false information all the time.
So Lee from the Guardians, he touched on this very briefly, didn't he? He said, how can a vacuum exist unless it's in a container?
Yeah.
What's contained in the vacuum?
It has to be in a container to create the vacuum.
It doesn't make sense.
Right.
And there's so much within science, within settled, approved science, that cancels each other out. It really doesn't make sense. And I think that's an excellent example of things that just don't add up. They tell us one thing. They tell us space is a vacuum, an endless, infinite vastness of a vacuum of space. And then they also tell us that we're just protected by this gentle atmosphere that's actually eroding all the time because of everything we do to it and blah, 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 blah. No.
Yeah, it's kind of contradictory. I'd like to say we've got 170 people tuned in right now. That's a record number, I do believe.
No, after you got arrested, we had like over 200.
Did we?
Yeah, yeah. We did.
Oh, what, in the ultimate episode where everyone tuned in just because I got arrested?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
All right. No, it's okay. I'm beating them. Human vibration. I've fought fire with fire. They've got nothing on me.
Good.
Just for telling the truth. Well, it's been awesome so far. We covered this before. You definitely need a container for a vacuum. Definitely.
I'm no physicist, but as far as I'm aware, from what I can tell from my own experience, with you need a container. Has to be a container.
Yeah. So we're back to the subject of this week's show. It's space, or what is space? And this is why we've invited Human Vibration along. She is a deception specialist. We coined that, didn't we?
I love that.
I coined that. I coined that. Yeah.
For that.
I'm going to take credit for that one. Yeah.
Human
Deception
vibration.
specialist.